Hello everyone. In this video we are going to look at nutrition during lactation, and we are going to start with the physiology of lactation. Lactation basically describes the production of breast milk and its secretion from the mammary gland after delivery. During pregnancy, the hormones in the placenta stimulate the cells in the breast to aggregate in order to form milk-producing cells called lobules. After birth, there is an increase in maternal production of the hormone prolactin, which stimulates the synthesis of milk in the breasts. And this is a positive feedback mechanism, whereby the suckling action of an infant produces prolactin, which leads to milk production, and more suckling leads to more prolactin, which in turn leads to more lactation. The structure of the breast. The breast contains parenchyma cells that consist of about 10 to 15 ducts extending from the nipple to terminate in the grape-like clusters known as alveoli, and these are the basic units. Nipple is surrounded by an area of hyperpigmented skin which is called the areola. We have 4 types of lobules. Type 1 is when an average of 11 alveolar buds around terminal duct are present, and this is apparent within 1 to 2 years after the onset of menses, immediately after the onset of puberty in females. The type 2 lobule occurs when there are changing levels of estrogen and progesterone during the menstrual cycle, and this stimulates type 1 lobules to sprout new alveolar buds and evolve to mature structures with about 47 lobules. The type 3 lobules occur in pregnancy, and this is where we have about 80 lobules. The type 4 are attained in late pregnancy with the production of breast milk in preparation for lactation. So this is a simple diagram that shows you the different types of breast lobules. And this is the anatomy of the breast. You can observe it and know each of the parts involved. The physiology of lactation. Lactation can basically be divided into 5 stages. Mammogenesis is the first, and this is the development of breasts into a functional state. Lactogenesis occurs next, and this is the synthesis and the secretion of milk from the breast alveoli. And then galactokinesis is the ejection of milk outside the breast. Galactopoiesis is the maintenance of lactation, and then involution is the regression and the atrophy of the breasts after lactation. Let's briefly look into the details of each of these steps. Mammogenesis. Here there is the growth of ducts under lobulo-alveolar systems, and this starts from birth up to puberty and continues until pregnancy. The ductal sprouting predominates in the first trimester, where there is a lot of estrogen, and then lobular sprouting in the presence of progesterone occurs more in the second trimester, and then the breast will continue more glandular epithelial cells. And just before and during parturition, there is a new wave of mitotic activity, which causes the growth and maturation of these lobules. The hormonal influences during mammogenesis. We have the prepubertal growth and the pubertal growth. Prepubertal occurs and depends on the estrogen and progesterone levels. The secretion of prolactin and somatotropin by the pituitary gland results in mammary growth. Pubertal growth occurs when the hypophyseal-ovarian uterine cycle is established, and there is extensive branching of the duct system and the parenchyma proliferation and canalization of the lobular alveolar units that are controlled by estrogen and progesterone. During pregnancy, in early pregnancy, a marked increase in ductular sprouting, branching, and lobular formation is evoked by the luteal and the placental hormones. Progesterone causes increased growth of the alveoli size and the lobes, and then estrogen stimulates milk duct system to grow and differentiates, and also stimulates the deposition of fats. Prolactin contributes to increased growth and differentiation of the alveoli and the ductal structures. Lactogenesis, this is the second stage, and it occurs in basically two stages, lactogenesis 1 and 2. The stage 1 occurs in mid-pregnancy. There is initiation of milk synthesis. The alveoli differentiate into the secretory cells, and prolactin stimulates the mammary secretory cells to produce milk. And further differentiation is inhibited by high levels of progesterone from the placenta. The second stage of lactogenesis occurs in late pregnancy, up to about 8 days after delivery, and this is triggered by rapid drop in progesterone levels after placental delivery, and requires the presence of elevated levels of prolactin and cortisol, growth hormones, and the parathyroid hormones to facilitate the mobilization of nutrients and minerals. Galactokinesis. This basically depends on the suckling mechanism of the baby and the contractile action which will express milk from the alveoli into the ducts. And this contraction is brought about by the action of oxytocin. The milk letdown reflex, or the milk ejection reflex. And this process is also inhibited by the psychic condition, pain, and also breast engorgement. Oxytocin is released from the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland during nipple stimulation or sensory stimulation, and this can be visual, looking at your baby cry and maybe you feel like breastfeeding will stimulate the production of oxytocin, and then tactile, when you touch your baby or the baby touches the breast, olfactory, smelling of your baby and you sense that they need to breastfeed, and then also auditory, hearing that your baby is crying and desires to breastfeed. And this causes ejection of milk from the alveolar gland by the contraction of the myoepithelial cells into ductules and ducts. Galactopoiesis is basically the maintenance of lactation, and prolactin is the major hormone that is involved here. And suckling is essential for maintenance of milk secretion. Periodic breastfeeding relieves pressure in the ducts and also promotes more secretion, and this is controlled by the autocrine system of supply and demand. The higher the demand, the higher the supply, and the lower the demand, the lower the supply. Postpartum amenorrhea. In most nursing mothers, the ovarian cycle and ovulation will stop until a few weeks after cessation of nursing. And this reason seems to be that the same nervous signals from the breasts to the hypothalamus, which cause prolactin secretion during suckling, or because of a subsequent effect of increased prolactin, inhibit the secretion of gonadotropin-releasing hormone by the hypothalamus. And so the follicle-stimulating hormone and also the luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary gland. So after several months of lactation, in some mothers who nurse their babies only some of the time, their pituitary will begin to secrete the sufficient gonadotropic hormones in order to restore the monthly sexual cycle, even though nursing continues. But those mothers that breastfeed consistently, you find that postpartum amenorrhea will take longer. Ejection, or the milk letdown process. Milk is secreted continuously into the alveoli of the breasts, but milk does not flow easily from the alveoli into the ductal system, and also does not continually leak from the breast nipples. When the baby suckles, it receives virtually no milk for the first half minute. And so sensory impulses are sent to the hypothalamus, which will stimulate the anterior pituitary gland to secrete oxytocin, which oxytocin goes via blood to the breasts, where it causes myoepithelial cells to contract, and this causes expressing of the milk from the alveoli into the ducts, and then the baby is able to obtain the breast milk. Within about 30 seconds up to 1 minute after baby begins to suckle, the milk is going to begin to flow. And this process is called the milk ejection or the milk letdown process. Fondling of the baby by the mother or hearing the baby crying will often give enough of an emissional signal to the hypothalamus to cause milk ejection. So this is basically a diagram that shows you how lactation happens. The baby sucks on the mother's breast to receive the mother's milk. So the baby sucking will trigger the nerve cells in the nipple to signal the brain to release the hormone oxytocin. Then a rush of oxytocin into the breast will cause the milk ducts to widen and the muscles around the milk cells to contract. And therefore breast milk will come out of the milk ducts into the baby's mouth. The composition of milk. So this table shows us the composition of human milk and cow's milk. And it is said that breast milk is the best milk for a baby and is the first milk that is safest. It's not advisable to give cow's milk. So in comparison of the nutritional composition of human milk and cow's milk, we find that there is a lot of water in human milk, which is sufficient for the baby to quench all the thirst. Up to about 6 months, the baby does not need any other food, so that is exclusive breastfeeding. There is more fat in cow's milk than in human milk, and there is more lactose in human milk than in cow's milk. Casein is more in the cow's milk compared to the human milk. Then there is lactalbumin and other proteins. They are higher in cow's milk compared to human milk. So at the height of lactation in the human mother, about 1.5 liters of milk may be formed each day, and even more if the mother has twins. So about 50 grams of fat enter the milk each day, and about 100 grams of lactose, which must be derived from conversion from the mother's glucose. Also about 2 to 3 grams of calcium phosphate may be lost each day. Multiple types of antibodies and other anti-infectious agents are also secreted in milk along with the nutrients. Neutrophils and macrophages, Escherichia coli bacteria, which often can cause lethal diarrhea in newborns, is very dangerous. So there is a rush of these neutrophils and macrophages to counteract this bacteria once it is encountered by the mother. The variations in milk composition. Breast milk basically contains colostrum and then the mature milk. The colostrum is present in about 1 to 5 days immediately post-patrition, and is richer in proteins, minerals, immunoglobulins, anti-inflammatory factors, phagocytes, and lymphocytes. The mature milk occurs from about after 30 days, and this one contains a larger quantity of all these nutrients compared to the colostrum. Breast milk composition. In breast milk you can find, especially in the colostrum, there's a lot of total protein, immunoglobulins. Basically, there are a lot of immunoglobulins and total proteins compared to the mature milk. So this first milk is very essential for the baby to obtain, especially this acquired natural immunity from the mother. And this provides protection to the baby from various kinds of infections around her or him. Advantages of breastfeeding. To the baby, breastfeeding or breast milk provides a balanced diet which is easily digestible. And it also provides protection against infection and against childhood obesity. Growth factors, epidermal growth factor and insulin-like growth factors are also present in breast milk, and so they're going to enhance the growth process in the child. Breast milk is also very sterile and very inexpensive, so it's affordable and very safe for the baby to consume. Breast milk is at the right temperature, so there are rare chances of allergies occurring in the infant. To the mother, postpartum amenorrhea as a result of continued breastfeeding is a form of birth control, and it will prevent conception after a few months of delivery. And this is going to help in family planning and spacing of the children. And it also helps in the involution of the uterus through the release of oxytocin that causes contraction of the uterus. It also protects against breast engorgement and breast infections. And it's also protective against cancer, and it provides emotional bonding with the baby. The factors that may affect lactation: maternal problems such as stress, stressful vaginal delivery or other psychosocial stresses causes beta endorphins to be released, and these reduce the oxytocin levels, and this is going to reduce the amount of breast milk present for the baby. Then polycystic ovarian syndrome also interferes with breastfeeding. Obesity, diabetes type 1, placental retention causes increased circulating progesterone, and this is going to hinder the production of the oxytocin. And also alcohol dependence causes obstruction of breast milk. The factors that affect lactation continued. Infrequent suckling or failure to empty the breast will cause elevated intra-mammary pressure, which also disrupts the connections between the cells and their attachment to the basement membrane. And this disrupts the synthesis and the secretion of the milk components. And then premature infants, we find that prolactin may not be sufficient for stimulation of breast milk production. Medications that reduce lactation: progesterone and estrogen medications. Then clomiphene citrate. This is used to treat infertility in those women who do not ovulate, and also with those with PCOS. Then pseudoephedrine in cough syrups is also dangerous and interferes with lactation. Levodopa, used to manage Parkinson's disease. Advice to the mother to improve lactation: the mother has to make sure she maintains good health and consumes a well-balanced diet. The mother has to make sure that she receives sufficient and early treatment for any kind of illness, and she should balance between rest and exercise. The mother has to be free from worries and stress. The mother has to sleep under an insecticide-treated mosquito net and also take antimalarials as prescribed. Care of the breast or nipples during pregnancy. It's very important to take care of the breasts and the nipples during pregnancy. And then postnatally, the mother has to make sure that she exercises frequent breastfeeding in order to improve the lactation. And this will also help to avoid breast engorgement. She has to consume plenty of fluids because the baby obtains all the nutrients from the mother, including all the water that the baby needs. And adequate nutrition is paramount. Maternal nutrition during lactation. The mother has to ensure that she eats at least 2 extra meals a day on top of the normal meals. Eat plenty of fruits and vegetables every meal. And for the first 3 months after birth, there is a need for iron and folic acid supplements. These iron tablets can be taken with food. And she has to always use iodized salt and take vitamin A capsules immediately after delivery or within 8 weeks to build the baby's immune system. She has to take deworming tablets as prescribed, and she has to avoid the use of alcohol, narcotics, or tobacco products. It's important to put the baby on the breast within 1 hour of birth to help expel the placenta and reduce bleeding. The colostrum also is excellent for the child. Even though the baby feeds for short periods, this little breast milk is very important. And the mother should not give water or prelactals to the child because this will delay milk secretion and can be unhygienic and cause infections in the child. She has to breastfeed every 1.5 hours to 2 hours. This will increase milk flow on subsequent days, about 10 to 12 times a day, and this causes at least 6 weights in 24 hours in the infant. She has to breastfeed more if the child is sick, and the mother is encouraged to give a breast to the baby to comfort the baby in case it's crying or if even they are sick. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months are very paramount because breast milk contains all the nutrients the baby needs for proper growth. Avoid bottles, teats, and sprouted cups. And adolescent mothers need extra care and more food than the older breastfeeding mothers because these adolescents are still growing and they're already also raising another human being that needs growth. So this is all we have. Thank you.